Hello, welcome back to Fred in the Shed 2 and a completely different type of video here. I'm really sorry if you've tuned in expecting to see me do some CB sort of contacts or even a review. Nothing like that. I'm just going to be chatting on this video. So I understand it if you want to go and click off and watch something else. You have to bear with me. I've picked up a little bit of a cold, so I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, so I don't really fancy going into the shack at the moment anyway, because it's about 4 degrees outside, which means it's about 7 or 8 degrees up in the shack. I'm just not quite feeling up to that. But to make things even more confusing, I'm probably going to end up putting a sort of background of the shack on this video, but I'm not actually up there. I'm kind of in the warm downstairs in the living room, just chatting to you guys and girls. Now, I'm making this video because I have been so kind of impressed, if you like, about the response I had on my last video on Fred in the Shed 1, and that's where I set up the mag mount antenna on the biscuit tin, and we laid out all of the ground, all of the tinfoil to get the ground plane, to get the SWR down. And I've had a great time. I've been reading all of the comments from people that it has sort of stirred up all of the memories of CB when we first went on, you know, back in the day. And I've been reading everyone's comments, and it's so kind of surprising that pretty much we were all the same, even from the guys from America as well. It really was that we were just all trying to get on CB. And I mean, here in the UK, as I said on that video, it really was about getting on CB as quickly as possible. It just exploded. It just absolutely exploded around my sort of neck of the woods, probably Christmas 1982, because we was all kids. I mean, I was 15. You know, we're just teenagers. We didn't have a lot of money. We had paper rounds. I used to go caddying at a local golf club. That's how I saved up for my first radio. £2.50 a round. Slogging my guts out like for 4 hours in the rain, carrying someone's golf bags, and then having to clean their clubs and clean their shoes at the end, you know, and wash my dad's car sort of twice a week to get 50p. But that's what it was, just getting on the air. You felt like you were missing out on a party. And it was just getting onto the air, and it was the best of times, but also, like the title of this video, it was also the worst of times, and I'll get onto that in a minute. But let's talk about the best of times, the best of CB, when it absolutely exploded here in the UK. A friend of mine got a radio first before I did, and I went round his house, and he had a DV27, and we set that up on outside his bedroom window on a cast iron guttering. Eventually we put it into the loft, and we got a few mobile contacts. And but the thing was, in those days, that the older guys, 18, 19, 20-year-olds driving around in their cars, they were a little bit cheesed off because they would hope that AM was going to become legal. And when FM became legal, it kind of sort of did away with all of the compatible sort of other continents, like Europe was on AM and America was on AM, and we got FM, and we got a really odd frequency. We got a 0.25 sort of ending on our frequencies, and it meant that we couldn't really get the skip, not legally. So there was still quite a lot of AM illegal radios about, and they were a little bit cheesed off that they got FM. But at 15 years old, you know, we didn't really think about that. We just suddenly had these radios. It was like social media. We could sort of talk in a limited capacity to our friends. We didn't get hassled for being on the phone at home by your mum and dad. Suddenly we had something that we thought was ours. But other than just sitting around my mate's house on his CB radio, the best part was at the weekends, which is on a Sunday, where we had what was known as the eyeballs. Now, all of you will remember those that were on the day, and that's where everyone sort of met up. You know, and in where I was living, it was like the local park. It had a big car park, and much to the distaste of all the sort of older residents that walked their dogs over there on a Sunday, suddenly all of these kids in kind of, you know, jeans and denim jackets and stuff, we'd all congregate in this pub car park, and it was absolutely great. You'd have a load of mobiles turn up. You had a couple of rig doctors. I remember one guy we called the Spider. He had a transit van, and you could buy all sorts of sort of second-hand radio equipment. He would have mag mounts, DV27s. He would have GPOs, which were like silver rods, all kind of like new and used. And he used to sell for cash at the back of his van. You could swap radios, and there was a lot of radio swaps and lots of sort of second-hand radios being sold, because radios were quite expensive in those days. When you think back, my first radio was £55. That's a lot of money back then. I mean, you know, you can go to nights and still get one today for that money. So it was a lot of money back then. So yeah, we used to go to these eyeballs, and then what would happen is we'd all hang around for about an hour, and then they'd do a fox hunt, and that was really, really good. Now what that was, for those who don't remember, was a guy would get in a car, and he would go out and he would park reasonably close, 2 to 3 miles, and he would hide his car, back of a station car park behind a shop or something. And then he would start transmitting, and you could ask him certain number of questions. He wouldn't tell you exactly where he was, but he would sort of give you little clues. And then what the guys used to do was the ones that had the posher radios, things like the Binatone 5 stars, and they had an RF gain, and they would drive around in their cars and slowly reduce the RF gain, sort of homing in, sort of trying to track him down, if you like. And they always used to sort of find him. And as kids, we would be scaraging about on our racing bikes with our handheld. So I had an Alba 2-channel handheld, and it didn't have a signal meter, but you could use it as a directional device. As you sort of swayed the antenna around, it would give you a rough idea. But we never found the foxes. The guys in the cars used to find them much quicker than we did. And it was really good fun. You could sort of sit there listening to it all sort of go off, and then what would happen was that they would all meet up and they would all go off down the pub, and we couldn't go to the pub because I was 15. I looked 15. You couldn't go in a pub at 15 unless you looked older. You get chucked out pretty quick. So that was the end of that. So that was one side of it, but then there was the other side of it, and this was the main attraction, I'll be honest, for me getting on the radio, and that was that you would get a lot of girls turn up at these sort of eyeballs. Really nice, kind of pretty girls would all come down there because it was a social gathering. This was your first type of social media. And what was different about that was that when you was at school, the girls at school would never really speak to you, because it was all kind of, everyone was full of their own egos at 15 and stuff like that. But when they sort of came down to the eyeballs, they were a lot more approachable. And because CB radio, you never really gave out your home 20, you used handles, so you didn't really know who you were speaking to. It was a lot sort of safer, if you like, for girls to speak on the radio. So when I did get onto the radio, and I found that you could talk to sort of girls quite openly. You would sort of have quite good, sensible conversations where all of the sort of ego would be dropped, if you like, because we were all stupid at that age, boys and girls. But you could have, you get to know them a little bit, to know about their hobbies. I mean, they didn't give too much away, you didn't sort of give too much away, but it was a genuine chance to talk to girls, which was something quite unique. At sort of 15, other than going down your local youth club, as I say, where everyone was kind of trying to act really, really sort of cool. So, yeah, the eyeballs for me, when I first went, I suddenly saw all of these girls in, to be honest, in their little sort of short skirts and all their Madonna outfits, and all trying to be dressed like sort of early Cyndi Lauper. To me it was great. So I had to get on radio then, because it was a good opportunity, a good chance to meet girls, and it did work. My first sort of girlfriend, if you like, the first girl that I took out was someone that I met at an eyeball on CB radio. And reading through your comments has been quite interesting, because more than one person has said that they met their first girlfriend over the CB, and I know from talking to people on CB, some people actually met their first wife. They went on and got married. So it was a great opportunity to get out there and sort of meet girls. And I also remember, and I don't know where you people lived, but we sort of used to have it late in the evening, CB would die down. I mean, on a Sunday was probably the busiest time, and I've said on the video that it was unbelievable that you would go on a Sunday afternoon, after your sort of roast dinner that your mum and dad did, and you'd be quite stuffed, and you'd go up into your bedroom, and everybody would be on in those days, and you would flick around, and every other channel was sort of busy with people, sort of chatting and sort of talking, and you go on the 1-4, because we used to call out on the 1-4. The mobiles were on the 1-9. You didn't muck about with the mobiles on the 1-9, because they would come and track you down if you sort of, gave them any abuse. So that was quite that was a real risk. So we stuck to the 1-4 as home bases. You'd call out your 1-4 for a copy, and someone would always sort of come back, and then you'd go and pick a window. Do you remember that? Go and pick a window, and you would go and chat. And you'd chat for hours, but not only about radios, but if you was a lad, you'd chat about computers, because, as I say, Spectrums and Commodore computers were a big thing when you were 15, and we'd just chat. And of course, you get a lot of girls came onto CB, probably towards the end of 82 into 83 when it was at its peak where I was. Suddenly, a lot of girls came on, and girls loved CB because, again, it was social. They could sort of chat. So there were lady breakers, and there was a lot of competition between the sort of boys. That if a new lady breaker came on, you would go on 1-4, and a girl would come back, and you go, oh hi, yeah, and you say yeah, oh yeah, pick a window. And she'd say, oh, channel 20. And by the time you clicked up to channel 20, someone else had already jumped on and taken your copy. And you would be honest, hey, hang on a minute, I was here first. And it'd be the other guy say, yeah, this channel's taken, breaker, can you go off to another channel? They would actually snatch you. So it was really sort of competitive, but it was friendly. And those were the best of times. I remember sort of coming home from school, getting onto the CB with your friends, meeting up at the park. That was the best of times, and that was really a lovely time on radio. But unfortunately, like a lot of things in life, it didn't last. This is where we get on to the worst of times on the CB. And it started off quite subtly. Where I was living, there was one or two lads that maybe weren't the most popular person on CB, maybe they were a little bit too pushy. They'd gone to the eyeballs, and probably the girls didn't really sort of take to them. They were a little bit kind of arrogant, if you like. And they started getting jealous that really a lot of us were sort of having such open, friendly chats to these kind of girls. And that's sort of where it started to go wrong. They would then start keying over you, and it started with the Roger bleep. And this was mainly the guys that had the Amstrad sort of 901s that had a kind of a high gain Roger bleep. And if you were talking to a girl, they would then start sitting on the side, bleep, 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 every time that you keyed up. They would, and when you dekeyed, the sort of girl would say, oh, I'm really sort of sorry that, I didn't copy that because someone sort of keyed over you. And it was, excuse me, got a right cold here. And it was kind of the first sort of type of trolling, if you like. These people went on radio to cause trouble. They weren't interested in getting contacts and making friends. They just went on radio to cause havoc and trouble, which is modern like trolling, which is what you get all over sort of social media now. So I certainly get a fair share every now and then on YouTube, and I know we get it on Facebook as well. People just want to cause trouble. They don't really want to be involved. And so, and what would happen was that one of these guys would get a burner in those days, probably a 40 watt linear amplifier. Again, they were highly illegal. And suddenly they would put up an outside antenna, and they had more power, so they could then start keying over more people. And it became a vicious circle, because I remember myself, I went out and bought a 15 watt Zatagi little linear just to sort of boost my setup, so I wasn't, I had less chance of being keyed over. They would then get 100 watt linears. I got a 40 watt linear again, and I kind of gave up at that stage. But then they would go out and they would get 200 watt linears. And then when they sort of got fed up of sort of keying over people, what would happen was you'd have what we would call the sort of disc jockeys on and they would sort of, jockey knobs or whatever we used to call them, and they would just sit on the 1-4, the calling channel, and key up pretty much all day, just playing music. And there was one guy that used to just play AC/DC and Metallica, which is okay, but oh my god. So you turn your radio on, and they've got running 100 watt linear, whatever, and all day long they would just sit there blocking the calling channel. And unfortunately, that really was the beginning of the end, because when they got bored of playing music or keying over you with Roger bleep, the sort of abusive language started. And CB radios, as I say, have been handed down to the younger generation, and pretty much the girls went first. I mean, they didn't want to be kind of abused on there, and it just spiraled down into a lot of abusive sort of trolling, and it was such a shame. I felt so sad at the time that CB had gone that far. And I was driving then, and I do remember putting an antenna on my car and going out on a Saturday afternoon and doing a parking up at a different town at a high ground, and you would get a contact, and that was lovely. And then you'd go on, chat to some guy or some girl, and very soon, within 15 minutes, you would have the local troll come on the side, start screaming abuse at you, and that was the sort of finish of it. And yeah, but I mean, What about your areas? I mean, that's where I lived. I'm pretty sure this happened countrywide. I mean, perhaps you let me know in the comments. I do enjoy reading the comments, especially on Thread 2. So, let me know sort of in around your areas, if you like. Did it go the same way? I got a feeling it probably did. It just didn't seem to carry on anywhere. And, yeah, what a shame. But that was the downside of the radio. And as I say, when I came back on in 2014, I mean, the first shock to me, it was so quiet. There was literally no one on. But it was also refreshing that a few people had stayed on right the way through all of the years. Steve Fatman 3, Charlie Tango 318, Paul from Luton, there were a couple of guys that they had stayed on and kept the faith. And kind of sort of kept it going. And now, of course, you've got people coming back. It's still quiet on CB. It's never going to be what it was, I know that. But you've got us all coming back on. We've got the little 305 group going, which is fantastic. I don't go on there all the time now. Steve can't get on there, but other people have come on, and taken that over. Brilliant, fantastic. But we're all old men now. It's quite funny, We're sort of we go on there moan about aches and pains and arthritis and stuff like that. Oh dear, it's sad, isn't it? But that's what it is. So anyway, that's just a little chat video. I mean, if you've stuck to this to the end, well, thanks for that. I don't know how many people will. Like I say, you're feeling a little bit under the weather here, so just getting all nostalgic. I might do one of, I might do some of these in the future. I've got some stories on sort of CB. I mean, we used to sort of have crazy mates that did stupid things like climb up 100-foot trees with a handheld to get out and things like that. And the Lovebird channels on in the evening, that used to be quite funny to listen to and stuff like that. So we'll see. I don't think you really want to hear me sitting here waffling on about old stuff in the old days. So I'd like to say, well, if you've got to the end of this, well, big thanks. I don't know who has, but really thanks for watching. Look after yourselves. It's cold out there. Yeah, stay safe. And of course, I'll do a normal video when I feel a bit better. And yeah, catch you all on the next one. Bye for now.